The political situation of the time was not safe for a number of students to pursue their dreams. This made it a priority for him to first stabilize the country, a struggle he was actively engaged in.
Independence for Uganda, for the people of Uganda, was sacrificed at the altar of opportunism.
Hailing from Mitoma district in western Uganda, Major General Kahinda Otafiire attended Bubagizi Primary School before Mutolere Primary and later Bushoroza, from where he completed Primary 8.
Then I went to Kitabi Seminary for 1 year, and I disagreed with the people who were teaching me over quite a number of issues. So I was advised to leave the school.
He opted for what he describes as self-education after disagreeing with some of the teachings. But why?
For instance, we were being taught European history. And I found it very interesting that I should be taught about what happened in Europe and not what happened in Africa. There are quite a lot of things I will write about later on that I didn't agree with. Questions of religion. There were many answers, questions unanswered, which I asked because I was in a seminary and there were quite a lot of things I wanted to know.
He would sit for mature entry examinations, which he passed and joined Makerere University, from where he pursued political science and public administration. While at Makerere, he was involved in anti-Idi Amin politics, successfully participating in the ouster of the dictator.
Idi Amin at that time was not alone. There were quite a lot of things going wrong, you know, because of what Idi Amin was doing. We were forced to even to look at the greater Africa, and it dwelled upon us that liberating Uganda was not complete, was not enough without liberating Africa.
But when he thought the dictator was gone, the country's stability was still far from being achieved. This is why he had every reason to believe that Uganda's liberation struggle was not yet complete. Hence, the 1981 Bush War struggle that culminated into Obote out of power.
And when the 1979 war ended, the subsequent events clearly showed that the question of liberating Uganda had not been resolved. Quite a lot of things were left undone. You could clearly see that the politics were not going to be stable. So in my mind, I realized we were going to have to fight again.
It was not by choice that the NRA Bush War struggle took long. It was because of the urge to create capacity to lead in the event of taking power.
We had to prepare cadres, we had to prepare this, we had to prepare that, we had to get weapons, we had to get weapons and get sufficient strength, not only take over the state, but also to maintain the state and stabilize the country. And that doesn't take a short time. Because if you had hurried, yes, you can take Kampala, but have you got capacity to control the whole country?
Indeed, with such strategy, the National Resistance Movement took over power in 1986. This marked a new chapter in the political, social and economic spheres of life in Uganda.
Uganda had become a failed state. Uganda was a failed state. So we had to clear this mess and reconstitute the state and bring sanity in government, and we had to include everybody. We decided on a strategy of including everybody who had something to contribute in the rebuilding, in the process of rebuilding the state once again.
I, Kahinda Otafiire, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda. And
General Otafiire has since served in various ministerial dockets including local government, internal affairs, regional cooperation, lands, trade, tourism and industry.
I became military assistant to the president, and then I served as I went back to training in the army to finish my training. From there I became Director General External Security and subsequently Minister for Security.
It was from the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Ministry that he took over East African Community from the late Ali Kirunda Kivejinja.
In advance, you all know all these things.
Here, he is bent on leading East African nations towards an agreed-upon federation for economic development.
Because the federation solves our security problem, solves our defense problem, unites our economies, solves the matters of shortages, shortages and inabilities. Because if there is shortage of maize in Tanzania, in a federation you don't need permission to move maize from Tanzania to cross the borders. If there is then you can plan production.
It is a political and leadership journey that draws back to his days as a youth winger in the Uganda People's Congress. The journey has seen him observe how people in Uganda have been voting over the years.
The voters don't vote for value. They don't vote issues. They vote cousins, they vote money, they vote religion, they vote all sorts of variables which have nothing to do with politics. Then you end up with, sometimes you end up with people who are equal to the job, MPs. Sometimes you end up with councillors in parliament. People who should have remained at LC3 council end up in parliament.
Indeed, it is a journey that has not been a walk in the park, with the challenges registered almost in all spheres. But how has he overcome this?
Cease fire, go back to your seat, go back to your seat.
His trek on Uganda's political and leadership tarmac road has not been smooth.
I instructed my lawyers to take government Nagrik to court.
He has encountered speed bumps called saboteurs.
We would allow General Otafiire to tell us why either himself or his name is involved in grabbing of public land.
Traffic lights called political opponents.
Is this impunity of the highest order? What you said, repeat it outside this house.
And obstacles called disagreements.
So come and tell us how you acquired government land. You let the papers here.
But with a gear lever called patience, a steering wheel called determination, and a braking system called consensus, he continues to make it in his career.
When two people are working together, and when they don't disagree, it means one of them is thinking. When two people are working together on the same program and disagree, that's healthy. When they don't disagree, then there is something wrong. Disagreement is not a problem. It's the inability to overcome the contradiction that is the problem.
Disagreements have not only been experienced at parliamentary level, but also partly in his own political party, the National Resistance Movement. His relationship with the former party Secretary General, Amama Mbabazi, is clear testimony to this.
But I sometimes disagree with his methods. Sometimes I disagree with his strategy. Sometimes we don't agree, but we are not enemies. We disagree. And I prove him wrong. Say the way you are running the NRM is not exactly the way it should be done. And now you can see subsequently what is happening.
Whereas he clarifies that he holds nothing personal against Mbabazi, he blames the recent loss of NRM in Buganda sub-region on the former Prime Minister. Otafiire now wants him to come and clear what he describes as a mess that he created within the party.
Because you could see it was coming, that the way we are handling the central region and other areas, we are going to end up in this problem. You know, in Buganda, there are errors we made, which have resulted in what has happened. And I used to warn Mbabas about this possibility.
In fact, he blames the rise of National Unity Platform on errors made in the national resistance movement. However, this to him is not a threat to the ruling party.
It's painful that Buganda, that at this epoch, Buganda, which used to have over 1/3 of members in the NRM caucus, now instead of 100, they have less than 30. And it's the NRM caucus that determines the direction of the country.
Whereas he confirms enjoying music by NUP President Robert Kyagulanyi, he notes that the youthful politician does not understand the trap that he got himself into.
Very good composer, very good music, he's my friend, but he knows much about the music and very little about management of society. We don't like that man Museveni. Museveni is not forever. After Museveni has gone, what next? Ask him.
According to Otafiire, Bobi Wine, as he's also known, does not understand the hidden agenda by the people he describes as neo-colonialists.
Innocent Kyagulanyi does not understand the imperial machinations, you know, the economic relation, the parasitic relationship between Africa and metropolitan Europe. He does not understand that relationship. That for Europe to develop, Africa must underdevelop. There is that parasitic relationship. Does he understand it?
As opposed to promoting the Western agenda, Otafiire prefers fronting African unity, a reason he has reservations about Buganda's demand for federalism.
They forget that we are Africans, we are East Africans, and we are Ugandans. They start with Buganda. But it is their democratic and God-given right to talk about themselves. That's what I want to hear. And there is no way I can persuade them to abandon that course unless I listen to what they are saying. And then they listen to what I'm saying. You know, I want that opportunity to talk to them and say, these views of you, as wonderful as they are wrong.
It is this similar spirit of unity that he is advancing in the East African region. As Uganda's Minister for East African Community, whereas there are some reservations, he insists East African nations need each other for the common good.
Once you are in a federation, you can plan production, and each partner state produces what it produces at comparative economic advantage. But right now we are all competing. Milk, eggs, everybody. Like now Kenya says Kenyans must eat expensive eggs because it must protect its own producers to the detriment of Kenyans. There are cheap eggs in Uganda, but Kenya can't buy them. And Kenya forces Kenyan citizens to eat expensive eggs when there are cheaper eggs in Uganda. But if we had a federation, that would not obtain.
General Kahinda Otafiire, who was voted out of parliament in 2016, was voted back to the House in the January 2021 polls. But what does he bring on table this time?
Fighting for my constituency without the other constituencies benefiting does not help my constituency. Because if you build a road in my constituency and it doesn't reach anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere else, what does my constituency gain? You can't fly power to my constituency without passing it through other areas.
The 70-year-old has been this successful because of his ability to distinguish between family and work. With a wife and children, the retired Major General in the Ugandan Army spends his free time reading and monitoring activities in his farm. To this effect, he has a word for youth.
What they know, we know. What we know, they don't. We also wanted quick worth. We didn't get it.